Okay, so before we get into some other things, there's a lot more people in the lecture class, so we're not going to do like name introductions like I typically would. A couple of things. My philosophy on like correctness as far as things go are, you know what, maybe in certain circumstances you sacrificing what would normally be considered good can also be beneficial in that moment, right? You have to be aware of the risks that you're taking when you do something that may be out of the norm or whatever. Like we had a body mechanics class before this that I taught, and it's like, yeah, these are good body mechanics, how you're going to deliver a wrap shot, generating power, and minimizing your chance of injury because you're no longer just relying on your arm. In the middle of a fight, it could still be the case that the only way you're actually going to hit the shot that would get a kill on somebody is strictly just by arming it and not using any good body mechanics, right? So, in that case, is a win what you're after, that what you care the most about, then maybe sacrificing body mechanics is still the appropriate answer for that question, right? So does that make sense? We're talking theory, good, basics for things, but I feel like there's a time and place for almost everything that you can provide to me, regardless of how ridiculous it is, like how wary your spin shot is that has headspace going up into it, or how maybe inherently bad it seems. You can probably invent a scenario where that is still just the one best thing that you can do, right? So if you have questions and you want to work on stuff like that, don't feel afraid to bring it up. You're like, oh, it's just like, is this going to be bad, or am I going to get around to one? Nah, not for me. Maybe please do, I don't know, but I doubt it, right? Other thing, questions are welcome at any time. In this format, probably just like raise your hands, we can pause or something like that. Otherwise, yeah, I like doing informal stuff, even though this is a lecture, right? Yeah, all right, so before we get into this, any specific questions that people have for footwork theory that they want to get out of it? Yeah. Anything in particular that you're interested in? We'll get into like workshopping examples of how to apply some footwork theory eventually. So when we talk about that, it's going to be helpful to be like, okay, well, I want to know how I'm going to use my footwork to step against a foreign-free person to open up a stab. Right? We can cover those kinds of things, but it'll still be a lot driven by you. We don't have a lot of information. Alright. Okay, so first off, the difference between, I'll talk about a little bit because I'm showing my fundamentals track, and there are two tracks that are like things that we're piloting this time, right? So my track starts out with footwork, which is just how do you move, right? How you move your body appropriately to keep good balance, good stability, and good agility. Then I had a body mechanics class, which is now that you can get to where you want to go, how do you deliver your shots, and how do you guard things successfully in order to minimize the risk of injury while maximizing power, right? So then we're moving into footwork here. So now that you have those tools in there, my idea is to flow into how to apply your footwork more to get you into kind of advantageous positions, things that you want to accomplish, right? So this is the prime question in this class. It's not how to move, it is why are we moving, right? That makes sense? So, anybody have any good ideas about why, in the context of fighting, why are we moving? What are some things we're trying to accomplish? Go for it. Okay. Yeah, so we're moving to gain an advantage and control space. I think that's probably the easiest. So, controlling space, that's like the prime goal of footwork usually, right? You're just trying to get into a position where you can do something. You can throw a shot, or you're moving out of a shot. What are some other goals that we're doing for footwork?
Adding more impact to shots.
Okay, yeah, so positioning in order to drive more effectiveness. Yeah, okay. So, we're talking about using your footwork to make your opponent out, right? So, in this direction. That's phenomenal. Others? Okay, yeah, so positioning in order to create a different kind of opening. Maybe that should have. Yep. Any other things people can think of? I got a couple more on this list when y'all run out.
Positioning yourself on the
Okay, yeah.
avoid injury.
Avoid injury? Yeah, okay, so using your footwork in order to, how would you be avoiding injury with footwork? Yeah, fantastic. We just talked about that in the body mechanics class. Is if you want to throw a particular shot, what you should be doing is probably moving your feet a lot more than you are, so you can get into an advantageous position so you can deliver your shot effectively without having to worry about using small muscles or overextending yourself, etc. That skill is primarily going to fall into some kind of control space or positioning or effectiveness and stuff like that. Any others? I got two more. Back.
Just using your footwork to either slow down or speed up the ride.
Yes. Tempo. Absolutely. Yes. We are using our footwork as a means of controlling tempo. Whatever. There's no spell check. That's fine. I type on a computer all day and don't care about being accurate. Oh, you're good that way. Yeah. So, controlling tempo. Now, what do we mean by that, right? So, if I'm standing in a particular range, right, we can just whack each other a lot. You can either slow down the pace of your whacking, or you can also just back out, and now you have created a gap which will change the tempo of the fight. They're either going to have to take a longer time as they move into you to throw the shot, or they're just not going to do anything at all. You can just breathe through, right? Yeah.
So, real quick, how well do you guys hear us in the back?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You might need to go out.
Okay. Yeah. Do people want to do that, or do you want to stay in here, or do you like that?
I can hear you, but I do
Let's go.
can.
I mean, yeah, agreed. Awesome.
Yeah. There's no way that.
No, that's it.
We'll come up with a lot of layers next year.
If I'd known that I was going to be dealing with that,
If I had more time, I would have offered down.
well,
Figuring it all out.
okay. Well, I have like a set of those.
Yeah.
I have a singular set of those in the car over there. It's just,
Yeah.
I was not aware of
It's having it ready and doing it.
Yeah.
It used to be a media professional.
Yeah. That is fair. All right.
Funny, my class earlier.
What direction do people want to sit? Because we can position
What direction
ourselves
do you
on
want
the
to talk at?
Let's go in the wood right here, dangle mat.
right over here. Okay.
There's a little stump. We can use that. We'll circle around that.
Cool. Yeah.
Make a little crescent moon of sorts. The whiteboard only faces one way. So.
Stop the instructor stump.
Instructor stunt.
All right. So we talked about controlling tempo using our footwork. Any other major goals people can think of?
To get out of the fight altogether.
Momentum. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Where's the
Behind
marker?
tractor.
You good writing on that? I'm
gonna try.
Yeah. The handwriting might get shakier out here, just FYI. We don't need the whiteboard for this necessarily. This is going to be more helpful when we start talking about positioning and looking at it like a sports table or whatever, where you see, X's and squares and lines.
There's a chair over there.
You can. Yes. Okay. Any others? Any others that don't fall into those general categories that we have right there right now? Go for it.
Crowding your opponent.
Yeah. So let's go a little step farther than that, because that still feels like trying to control space with a specific purpose
You mean like
in mind.
mental control, like in
No,
space?
like applying pressure, because a lot of people panic when you close.
Yeah.
Pressure.
So controlling initiative is what I would say something like that would fall into, right? Or potentially one of the other ones.
Influencing their mental game.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you can use your footwork to influence mental game and to try and, yeah, you can either be trying to misdirect them or just to force them to do something. So that kind of takes us to the last one of these that I have on the list. We can add more. If people got more, we can add. Which is, we're here for y'all. You're using footwork to elicit responses from your opponents, right? So you can use that. It's hard to elicit a specific response unless you're doing other things with it that we're not going to talk about necessarily in just footwork theory. But you can still use your footwork to elicit some response.
Face and face?
Yep, exactly. All right, so.
Wouldn't that be misdirection?
Eliciting a response is not necessarily misdirection because you're not tricking your opponent
Got it.
that
Okay.
you're doing something that you're not,
Okay.
but you are getting them to do something in such a way that you know hopefully what the outcome is.
That
Or
makes sense.
maybe you don't even know the outcome, right? Maybe you're tired of standing at extreme range with them and nothing is working, so you want to find a way of making them engage with you. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know what kind of shot they're going to throw with or open with or anything like that, but you need to get that going in order
Okay.
for you to
Would that
start
be like a
swinging.
type of active reading then?
Yeah, sure.
Because if I write baits and feints, that is kind of misdirection, but it's active reading. You are pressing the read.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, just eliciting responses.
Eliciting response. Okay.
Yeah, it's all the same kind of concept.
I don't think I spelled that right. Nobody
All right, so
E-L-I-C-I-T-I-N.
that is a fantastic list that we can pick apart momentarily for why we are moving, right? And we can talk about some specific examples of how we're going to accomplish some of these things. But let's move on to some other things that we need to keep in mind when we're talking about footwork theory. So what are some considerations that you have to have when you're going about trying to accomplish some of those goals? Range? Yeah?
Your physical ability.
Yes, yep. How much, yeah, how fast and how far can you move in a particular direction?
I guess for when I say range, I'm not so much talking about just myself, but also the opponent.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be aware of what your opponent can do. You need to know how far they can move as well, right? Yeah. Way more difficult to analyze on the moment, especially against people that you don't have much repertoire for and you don't know how they fight, but you can try. Timing.
That's trying to
Yeah.
elicit responses.
If it's a short battle, then especially in a tournament, you have a time limit, and otherwise, timing of shots and timing of their shots, so how that all goes together.
Sure, yeah. So the consideration of what you can do when you're doing these movements and stuff like that. How about concealment, right? If you're trying to do something in particular, we don't necessarily want them to be aware of what we're doing. So in order to accomplish this goal of misdirection, you have to be aware and cognizant of how you can conceal your actions, how you can move around. Or vice versa. You have to be aware and you have to be able to recognize the signs of your opponent and what they can do and what if they're trying to disguise their actions against you with their footwork especially. I think reactions kind of got covered a little bit on one of those. Yeah, the timing aspect is probably a lot of that. So reactions would be another thing that I would add to this list, right? So you have to be aware of what your movement is going to elicit from the opponent before you can even start to formulate a plan. Or before you can judge a plan as being good, right? You're like, okay, I want to take a massive lunge this way because it opens up a shot. You know, I'm going for a juicy butt wrap or something like that. What is the reaction of that person going to be, right? Like, maybe they're going to just be lazy and try to turn and shrug the shot. which good for you, congratulations, you probably just got your butt wrapped. But if their reaction is strong, right, and they rotate and they pivot their shield down, or they take a step back or something, and now your range is short and you're coming up on their leg and they're just looking over the top of you, that's probably going to be bad for you. So being aware of the reactions that you're going to get out of these people by the way that you're moving.
What's open?
Yeah. So yep. What is available? Yeah, that falls on analyzing your opponent's card. We're not going to get too much into that aspect of it just because that goes above and beyond simply only footwork, but we can use that when we're formulating our plan for how we want to move footwork, right? But, and then the final thing, right? So we don't fight in gyms necessarily all the time. We don't have a perfectly flat ground and infinite space to run around. Yeah, you got to be aware of your environment. You need to be aware, like, and so let's talk about environment, right? So right now we got dirt, we got dust. I'm a very mobile fighter and I get low and I try to be explosive. What that means is I'm probably gonna have to be aware that there's a chance I'm gonna slip and eat shit. This stuff, I have to be a little more cautious about what I'm doing, about how I'm loading my body and how I'm ending my stance, right? Because as soon as I start to slip, then my plan goes out the window. I'm probably get punished really easy.
Or even when the terrain changes, like the
Yep.
bottom of your shoes versus mine, I'll sometimes get trenched into a piece of grass and the shot just fails completely.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, being aware of your environment. And then again, even if you are indoors on perfectly flat ground, what is one of the things that is most common in the most competitive environments outside of just like a series fight that I can think of, right? So I'm talking tournaments right now. What's common in tournaments? Boundaries. Hits, right? That's gonna alter your game plan. I love to back up and play range game with people. If I only have a 10-yard by 10-yard pit, if I want to maintain my range, I'm not gonna be able to only back up and just like rely on the fact that I can run backwards as fast as most people can run forwards. Can't do that. I'm gonna have to adjust my game plan in order to move within those boundaries and still try to keep that game plan alive. So yeah, hard boundaries are a huge consideration. Difficultness of like terrain, so like that tree stump, you're gonna fight around that and you're not gonna just find a different spot where you don't have to worry about it. You need to know about it and keep tabs on that mentally in your mind before you can even begin to approach footwork plans for trying to conquer the world.
What about weapon loadout? Is that something that factors into footwork theory?
Yeah, that's fantastic actually. So yeah, equipment is going to impact some of the considerations that you have, or maybe some of the plans that you're going to develop, right? Like if I know for sure, like, my board is out here, I can be down low or something like that and maybe not worry about the position that I'm in because I got my board over here to soak stuff out. If I have Florentine on the other hand and I'm reaching like super far out or something, I'm probably going to get torn alive. So, and in single especially, like it's deadly for everybody involved. With a single weapon, just everything is going to be dangerous whenever you're hitting them. They probably can hit you unless you're like really good about the linkiness.
As well as equipment differential. So like a lot of Bell and Dad kids will come out with their heavy sticks. Like it's not as fast. Like dude, you're swinging a wall. My stick can probably block this much. That's very consistent.
Yep, exactly. So what does that mean for footwork then, right? It means that they have to be a lot more aware of their range and where they're going to be, and they don't need to have like necessarily the amount of power that they're driving into things, which to body mechanics class, you can generate power with heavier things and not have to worry about throwing your fucking arm out. But it means that you have to be aware of that, right? So now you have to adapt your footwork in order to manipulate and get into a range that's more beneficial for you based on that equipment if you don't want to throw your arm out. And even if you are throwing your arm out, it might not work that well. So how can we use footwork to compensate for that, right? Yeah, okay. So, now that we have all these considerations, we have these goals, let's talk about what it means to control space, right? So, and we'll talk about how to use footwork for doing that. We can probably, I don't even know, I didn't get an eraser. Oh, they all have these.
Yeah, they're fucking well fit on that.
All right, let's erase most of this stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh no, we should keep that. Listen
Well, I was
responses.
thinking just try to cross them. If you can find a cross, then keep it.
Yeah.
So, sure, give me the green. Yeah, so we got control space. I'm pretty sure we can go instead of aim.
Yep.
Physicality, position for maximum. Timing, misdirection. I think those go pretty well. Both of these go pretty well.
Yeah.
Good. Concealment.
Misdirection.
Yep. We'll give a little.
Misdirection with footwork. Strong.
Reactions. Where do we want to throw that?
Pressure and initiative.
Ah.
And illicit response.
Ah. The one that I halfway wiped away. Hopefully you can remember.
Okay, forward and stance.
Guard. That would probably
Is
be
that your
a
wife?
condition for math effectiveness
Yeah.
and control space.
Active reading too. I'm gonna do this on blue.
That's
We got a lot of lines here. So
Yeah.
bang. We said momentum, and then we said what else? Position.
Position
Okay.
and control space.
So we got those two. Then environment. That one's gonna be a screwy one.
Yep.
That's more on the
Position
safety
for maximum
thing.
effectiveness
Yeah,
and environment
Position
makes the
and
most
controlling
sense.
space.
I'm gonna cheat here as well, actually. Can I get another color?
Yeah.
Because footwork is about how you interact with your environment.
Ah, big brain. Yep.
I mean, doesn't terrain affect your momentum?
It affects all of them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Footwork is about navigating your environment.
Yeah.
I didn't see.
So the it's supposed to be all of them.
Morph of the sword get that handsome?
I mean, you gotta work
Yeah.
hard,
Ben.
babe. You see them gorgeous locks? That takes time and effort. That took longer than Warlord did. Okay.
I'm a late bloomer.
All right, and equipment. We got anything for that?
Everything.
Say everything again, right?
Yeah.
The top down.
Yep.
So this is bottom up. Pressure and information we're taking in is the information we're forming.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes good sense. Okay. I think since we're outdoors, we can take a little bit more advantage of using our bodies in the space. I can ask for volunteers, or I can help have Tisco come up here. Somebody want to do some standard pelling?
I also ordered me.
It's not. Yeah, exactly.
It's all good. You got a stick?
No, not actually with a stick or anything like that. The whole point of this is footwork.
We're not doing arm work.
We're not doing arm work. No body mechanics, no weapons, no nothing. Right? All right.
Looks like that.
So first up here, we are controlling space. Right. So into and out of range. Right. So it's pretty easy. If I move forward with my footwork, he's probably going to attempt to match. Right. So that is just forward, and that's backward. If I'm trying to control space in such a way that I'm going to narrow the space, what are some things that I can do to help that out?
A lunge.
A lunge, yeah. Okay, so a lunge, he'll take a normal little shuffle step backwards. I'm gonna lunge super far. Now we're closer than we were. We've altered that equation a little bit. Yep, this is a last ditch effort because it's really hard to recover from a lunge, but it doesn't matter. It still is a way of effectively controlling space,
Just
right?
because he's in a bad position doesn't mean I'm not in a worse one.
Yeah, exactly. So, a lunge. What else?
A gathering step.
Yeah, okay, good. So, we'll talk about that. Moving in 45s, gathering step, what was yours? Gathering step, sick. Awesome. So, inherently, most of the time, when you're thinking about people, or rather when they're dealing with footwork, also that's a crappy place to stand. Okay, yeah. You're doing footwork well. Yeah, so if we're doing this and I'm not necessarily like getting any closer because he's being aware and he's backing up or something like that, I can start moving at other angles. Because if I'm moving at other angles, this is where I need like a little bit more space. Let's take a little example here, right? So we have myself and my opponent, right? So I move this much forward, they move that much forward. If they move that much back and I go at an angle, on the other hand, it's now a shorter distance and they're not going to feel as threatened, right? So moving at an angle has changed it, and it's making that person feel less threatened by my footwork. Now on the other hand, if they are, so does everybody understand less threatened means they're probably not going to be as concerned about that kind of movement, right? So if they are less threatened and they take a bigger step.
I got a picture.
See. Yeah. Awesome. So their initial response when you move in a 45 is most likely going to be one where they are going straight back, and they're probably going to keep their stance the same. We're not going to dwell on like the mechanics of this, right? But their stance is probably going to stay the same, and you're moving at a 45-degree angle. You're opening them up to follow-up movements not being as strong as what their initial movement was, right? They moved straight back. Eraser.
Oh yeah.
Sit. They moved straight back. You moved at a 45 and adjusted your stance because you're good. And now you have a method of pressing them at an off angle. So if we're thinking about our footwork and we're thinking about our stance, right? We have a strong stance and we're sinking. The stance can only still be strong in so many planes, right? Like even if you're as neutral as possible, you're balanced. You can go forward, backward, side to side really easy. This stance inherently has a weakness where? 45. Because it is where my feet are on a plane, a single plane, and that's always going to be the weakest place that you can get pushed and manipulated, right? So if you're on a 45 with them, it doesn't matter side necessarily, but you have now altered the situation with where you're approaching them. If you approach them at an opposite 45, right?
Get the whole sticks.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna do this in little examples. So
Yeah, Mo, get the other half.
our two fighters. We take one big step back. This person takes one big step this way. They are back. You are now over at their side at a different angle. You take a step in. They can attempt to step back, but they're not gaining anything by that. What most likely is going to happen is they're going to either take a second to reorient themselves because you have pushed in a direction and they feel threatened by your stance, right? So they're in bad stance, facing the same direction that they were. They don't like the fact that you're over here. The good thing to do is going to be adjusting.
So, where are you saying?
Yeah. So push me at a 45. Okay, I'm gonna take a step back. Yeah. Now I have to like reorient myself. And when they're doing that reorientation, because they feel threatened by your movement, they are going to be opening themselves up for faster responses from you because you're already like you're landing and you're already aware that you're going to be at this off angle. You can now push them and control distance that way, right? So the other thing that you can do to control distance. So that's one method, right? You can just keep pushing angles or redirect angles after you've seen what they're planting and they're off balance or they're just not oriented appropriately with you. Either they're going to take a second to do that because they realize they made a mistake and you approached at a weird vector, or they're going to attempt to orient without taking any kind of movement, or maybe just like a little bit of movement or something, and they can get there and you can cut into them faster, right? The other thing, so gathering step, right? That was one of the other ones. So what is nice about a gather step? We talked about this a little bit in the footwork class, but what is nice, and let's show an example. So a gather step is me just cheating a little half step, right? So I'm here. Instead of keeping a good stance, I'm gathering my feet together, right? So what is good about this?
It doesn't look like you've changed the range.
Correct.
Plus you've got both the option to go back to your old stance or to push forward out of it.
Yeah. It's gonna take a little bit more maneuvering for certain types of motions, but you have now affected, or rather I should say you're more vulnerable if they decide to push you right in this moment because they see your feet together. It's like, this is a bad stance. But the good thing is, fighting happens a lot of times like the top half of a person, right? People are looking at your chest, they're looking at your head, your arms, maybe your hips. Hips are the best. Not too many people watch the feet. It is important to try and keep those in mind and like look for these kinds of things, but this is about how you can use this to control. So you take your little gather step. My height remains virtually the same. My front leg hasn't moved at all. They don't necessarily feel any more threatened, but they don't necessarily realize that I have also gained an extra half little foot of distance that I can close. So it's effectively creating a bigger distance gain that I can have versus a normal shuffle step or something like that.
It's kind of like when you use a punch, right? And you step into it.
Exactly, yeah.
What you're doing with your feet.
Yep.
Right.
Though, you can do the reverse too.
Yeah.
When you want to draw your opponent into something.
Yeah.
Like, especially if they're not trying to engage. You're walking forward, maybe start backing up. Well, you can.
Yeah.
Once you can do this, you can make your body look like you stepped in this way.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll solicit them coming forward. Now they come forward, I want them to come forward, you can hit them. So
yeah,
the opposite applies too.
Yeah, yeah. So you can use this as a defensive method of eliciting response, making them think that you're farther away than you also are. But yeah, so good example. Gather step is really cool. Again, like just be aware that as soon as you do that, if they're paying attention, they could probably press you. But hopefully you're doing it in rapid succession, right? Like so, it's like little gather step, they make no response, and then you're just like, okay, now is my time, and you're closer than they expected, right? Can people think of other examples that you could use footwork for controlling space?
Lateral steps.
Yeah, yep. So when would a lateral step be appropriate for controlling space?
When your opponent is pushing very hard straight at you, when you lateral, you're moving out of their line and now they're exposed.
Yeah, correct. So you have altered the situation in two ways. If somebody's pushing you, they're coming at you, right? You can just, I can sit here and I'm fast. I can back up until I hit a tree or a car or something like that, right? In a straight line. And I can try to maintain my range and pick them apart in doing that. But that's not necessarily, like, it's not feasible to do it forever. If you're not having success with doing something like that, then you're probably not going to find it in the next 10 steps that you take or whatever. So we have to introduce another thing into that equation. And instead of moving straight backwards, we can do a lateral step when they're charging, and instead we can get out of dodge. And now we've changed the situation to where they're moving this way. They have to, again, reorient themselves with any kind of lateral movement, or they're going to be shooting off to the side. Now you have to be careful with some of this, because if all you do, say Tisco's coming at me and that's his sword side, right? Yeah, so he comes at me, I go this way, the range is closed on me, and I have to be aware of what kind of danger I'm introducing, right? So if I'm going left against somebody with like sword and board or something like that, that's very counter to the normal way that we move. So we think about moving in sword and board. So yeah, be aware of what you're doing with the lateral steps. It is altering it in a different way, but you're probably going to end up closer than you were before. So you're going to have to be more aware of like.
The goofy thing too is that a lot of times people overemphasize keeping midline with your opponent.
Yeah.
But if I take a step in and I go for maybe I put pressure here, you come on that 45, right? So I could pivot, but if I then pivot and I take a lateral, is it the same as going forward? I'm not facing him anymore. My lateral is now creating forward space in his context. Does that make sense?
That makes, yeah.
I might have chewed on my words there.
No.
But essentially, if your midline is offline, that lateral step is now literally a forwards. And it seems stupid, but once you get into the exchange of it, if I get like a little bit of pressure here, say he bites it for just a moment, okay?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, and that's definitely with keeping up with the orientation aspect of it too, right? So you can use your footwork to get into a bad orientation or something, and you're eliciting a response off of that. So you're like, now I'm here, and my center line is here, and this person's still fighting over here. But when I take my next step, we're suddenly in a completely different situation. And I just did my orientation ahead of time. Right? My orienteering was the forethought in that situation, not an afterthought. That's fantastic.
So in that same respect, the example that you have drawn on the whiteboard, taking the 45-degree steps.
Yeah.
If you were, of course, the person who stepped backwards here, someone comes in on your 45.
Yeah.
Instead of just reorienting to them and being at a disadvantage, you could take a lateral step and retake the advantage.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about being person number 2 in this instead of the person who's advantaged, right? So if somebody approaches me at a 45, what am I thinking of doing? What would the standard response be? Say let's talk about Tisco coming this way at me. Yeah. So he's coming 45 kind of off to that side, right? What would my response be? Yeah, what would the prototypical response with the movement in it would be me backing up at a 45 this way and forcing it to go back to that same thing. So I'm going to go 45 the opposite direction and try to do my orientation as I'm making that movement to be where I know he's going to be. So my stuff stays the same, and now suddenly he's out of position for where he wanted to move.
Is this a situation where you could just step and like fully step back so that you just
You can do that, but one thing to
consider
with footwork is that just because you've neutralized threat does not mean you have done anything helpful for you.
Yeah.
Right.
So if he comes in real hard and I counter step here, okay, I don't feel like I'm in a good spot. If he backs up right now, he actually has priority on it. My hand might be in the way, but it's in his shield usually, right? Or even if it's a flow, I can maybe dig for something, whatever. But all of this, I don't have a great answer for. If he backs out at this point, go ahead and start, and I can get the pressure on the timing there.
Yeah, and if that, yeah, so if he does, yeah, exactly. If he does it in that way, and he starts to pressure this way with his footwork, now I'm the one backstepping, and I'm probably, if we're that close to, again, well, like we talked about in the, just how do you like your footwork class, not theory. We know for a fact that moving backwards, just biomechanically with the way a leg is designed, it's gonna be slower in less distance than going forwards. So that is always something that you can use as an advantage. Is going to be trying to push somebody off at an angle or straight back so you can move faster than them. That doesn't mean they're not going to be faster than you, right? Like I can backpedal like nobody's tomorrow. I will like Usain Bolt you, but
I mean,
it still means it's that doesn't mean it's not advantageous to try.
Absolutely, and like. A big thing too is like you don't need to be faster than your opponent. Demos did this at me not too long ago, but forever ago, and I've added a thing to it. So we got Warlord Demos that set the original and actual Demos the rest. Speed is a lie that your brain tells you when you don't know what's going on. And when it comes to blocking, you can either be there first or you can be there fast. Thirdly, don't be there. So if he is backpedaling me, I'm tired, I've been fighting too long, I didn't get electrolytes in my body, I'm not going to be chasing him, but I'm going to be trying to match some timing with him, establish some kind of context so I can get a rug pull. Because if I'm just always either trying to jump in or going, you know what, I ain't going to do that, all of a sudden I've given him offensive pressure with his footwork, and I've not given anything for this exchange.
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit in the at the end of that class too, is like, how do you conquer somebody when all they have ever shown you is that they want to retreat, right? So now we have a couple of different ways to do that. We have angles that you can push in on, which are going to make them have to adjust in some way, shape, or form and try to circle around them. We can get into some misdirection in a second because that's where that comes in really heavy. And we have the ability to do something that we're trying to do a gather step to get an extra little boosted distance out of there, or a lunge is another fantastic way of doing that. But again, lunge is like a last-ditch effort, or you're really confident in your blocking ability, or something to that effect, right?
Is that more of a lunging step as well?
Give me an example. What's a lunging step? Okay, so you're effectively jumping, yeah. So leaps are good, and you can get same thing. It's like a lunge, right? You're getting more distance than you otherwise would. What is the biggest problem with the jump?
Balance.
Yeah. There are a lot of things with it. Yeah, exactly. So the commitment is 100% there, and you cannot adjust it at all. It is also.
I usually keep my feet close to the ground.
I'm
not doing that.
The issue of like you're off balance, you're doing it wrong. It's just mechanically, if I'm up in the air, there's a bit of a drift before I actually can land. And if you go down to New Mexico and you go fight with those folks, you try to do any kind of lunge, they go, okay, they'll look at you in the eye and then hit you in the stupid hip. Yeah. They're gonna wait for that foot to drop. As soon as they hear the little click,
like clockwork.
Unless you can fly.
If you can fly, I mean, hats off. You're the next generation of top tier. I wish I could get that.
You should probably take up archery.
And even if your feet stay on the ground during that, your weight is not on the ground.
Yeah,
You're technically just touching it while you slide across it.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
that
So
makes
because let's think about this from a necessary standpoint, right? So with a regular lunge, I'm keeping this rear foot in contact with the ground the whole time, right? But that limits how far I can go, and maybe I can get some slide by overextending at the end, right? Like that. That foot still came off the ground, and now I'm even worse for trying to keep it on the ground. The more effective way of doing that is going to be, even if your feet are low, you're still effectively leaving the ground in order to get that step out of it. That's just going to be how you get a lunge and get into this position and get a step going at the same time. Unless you're talking about like doing a different kind of step, right? So you're cross-stepping. So you're coming through the plane from like a stance right here, and then boom, and you're going with a lunge with it. That's like a step that you're ending with a lunge. So it's going to be a lot of distance that you travel, but it's going to take a lot more time because you're going through two movements. You're not just lunging for it, right? You're stepping and ending in a lunge. And then you're still ending in a lunge, which is going to commit you over.
I'm going to briefly commit heresy and then negate it.
Yeah.
So during that lunge, when can you swing? Like when you're in that middle process before you land, are you able to throw anything with good pressure? You can do it at the end very well, but in the middle of that, can you redirect your arms at all?
I'm not sure. I haven't tried it.
It'll be very
think
difficult,
so.
and it will be, even if you can, I would say it probably won't be something that will be good.
Which inversely means that your body momentum is committed to that direction.
Yep.
It's not so much that you can't swing, it's that there is nothing for your hand to the ground to go anywhere. So again, it comes back to the footwork.
You're not grounded.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're lightning letting. But so in that space of time, you are not able to then influence any other kind of footwork, because if I go for that lunge and he just sees that back leg go, at that whole time I'm just watching the slow motion, like my past and future kind of thing, while he's just fucking messing with me. Sorry.
Oh no, I'm happy, that's fine.
Well, you've ever had someone with the dome and you're like, okay, cool, and then they come up and you're like, wait a minute, I got you.
Yeah.
We're good. We're fine.
Yep. All right. So that's some good examples of like controlling space and how we're going to use footwork to do that. So you got to keep angles in mind. You got to keep things like your gather steps in mind and how you're going to try and close distance on somebody. Keep your orientation in mind. That's always going to be paramount, right? So you want to make sure you're oriented properly, or how you expect it to be proper after you've executed a plan. I think that's good for controlling space. What was next on that list? Oh man.
Position for max effectiveness, which builds up the last one, right?
Yeah. Yep. So that takes us into tricking people?
I think so. I think you got that one. Go for it. Yeah.
You got that deception. Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, great.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about deception and how you can hide it a little bit with the gather step because you're getting a little extra half measure in there, and you haven't changed your guard necessarily. You haven't changed your orientation or position, and you've kept your height the same. What are some other things you can do for deceptive footwork?
Slow fade.
Slow fade. Okay, so yeah, you don't have to do everything at full speed all the time, right? You can weirdly fade out of something, right? So we're here fighting or whatever. You have all this range of motion while you're in combat, and the slower you do something like that while the other person's just like going to town on their combo or something like that, the less they're going to notice about it. So being slower can sometimes be hugely advantageous. And again, that's getting into controlling the timing of this too, right? Controlling the tempo, because you're slowing things down in a way that they're not necessarily familiar with. Everybody's expecting 100% go hard all the time. That's not how it has to be. You can be deceptive, you can be weird with things, and like, am I gonna, like, if I'm swinging at you, am I gonna notice an extra 4 inches forward or back like that? I'd love to say I have the precision for that kind of stuff, and I think I do, like, maybe defensively, but offensively, if I'm trying to reach for you, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pick up on that much, right?
Yeah, it's tuned in.
Yeah. Others?
Microtransactions. Tiny steps.
Tiny steps.
Just
yeah. Little
basically
tiny adjustments.
shifting, shuffling your feet that actually end up adding up to you're going somewhere.
Yeah, this is my favorite thing to do. So I will do this beyond belief, and I will just throw the same shot 3 times or 4 times, and you'll just be like, I blocked it every time, and then all of a sudden you get hit, and it's like, but why did I get hit? Like, wrap shot, wrap shot, wrap shot, wrap shot. Slightly altering my position every time, and it looks like I'm just trying to get force or whatever, but it's such a micro movement that it doesn't matter, right? It's going to get me the success because I'm programming you that like, oh yeah, you got the block, I promise you got the block, now you're dead. So, micro stutters.
For easing into range, but not making it like a super obvious stuff like you're stepping.
Yeah, baby. What happens fighting a lot? We circle.
Yeah.
We circle a lot, right? Maybe there's a lot of posturing that happens in a fight. You go up against somebody like, oh yeah, I'm super comfortable, or like I'm trying to analyze and see what's going on and stuff like that. Yeah. What is he doing, right? We're not just circling. What did he just do? And he got closer and closer, and I tried to maintain distance and I couldn't. One more time?
He gained space.
Yeah, how? What was he doing?
His angle was slightly different, so every time he stepped, he was getting a little closer,
yeah,
but also turning, so he's concealing how close he was getting.
Exactly. So when you're spinning, people a lot of times are going to expect to dance, right? Here, we go this way, you go that way, boom, space the same. They rotate on that plane. You rotate on a slightly tighter plane and try to spiral them out, right? So, do what now?
Can you show that again?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm here, I'm just trying to move, yeah, exactly. Like, I can't get away from him unless I'm committing to going back even more. And that's going to be rough because as soon as I start to backpedal, especially against somebody like Morpheus or people who are good at pushing and stuff, that's going to be near game over, like almost every time, right? So him spiraling like that is usually a sign for me to start attacking him because I don't like what he's doing and I know that I can't win that game unless I'm overcommitting my steps. Because again, forward movement, easier than backward.
You could use footwork to help sell a feint.
Yes. So you can use footwork to help sell a feint. Examples?
Stomps.
Go for it.
Stomp.
Stomp? Yeah, okay. So one of the things that I think a lot of people will do is they will just throw a big stomp out, right? Like they're sitting here or whatever, they just have their guard, stomp. And it's like, that's not necessarily gonna sell me on anything. However, it does not.
Response though.
Do what now?
Sometimes it elicits a response.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So absolutely, everything can potentially still get you a thing, right? Like you can still get a reaction out of people, and if you do, fantastic. That's like job done. It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning, right?
Well, even if we were talking about lunges, which typically is kind of an explosive movement. You can fake with that just to see how they react, right?
Yeah.
You've been spinning the whole time. He's explosive. Step down, though. You don't have to go for a full lunge. Just go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So instead of just a dirty stomp, what happened here with that footwork? What happened? Yeah.
It's not just my leg and everything's coming forward.
Exactly.
He's making this look like I'm gonna hit them.
Yeah. And if you do the stomp and they don't react, next time you can do a gather step when you stomp.
Yes, we can go 10.
More deep chest, but
right,
exactly. We can go 10.
One thing with selling the footwork though is like if you fought a person enough times, their horizontal stomp, like to just step out and go, even that just little. People listen to that, and it sounds really stupid, but just going like that and then applying pressure this way, it elicits other responses.
Yeah.
The feint that you have to sell with the footwork is that people typically remember the first and the last thing of the motion. So the last thing of the motion is the stomp in the land, but there's also just the stupid little knee twitch that people do.
Yeah.
You can get people to bite just going like that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not just a stomp, right? We're not just standing here and stomping our foot on the ground like what happens a lot. Or maybe somebody, they're out of range and they do the stomp, and it's like, I'm out of range, I don't really care. Like you stomp your feet away or whatever. Again, same thing that we talked about a little bit is like, people see you do that, it's like, I do that as much as you want. I'm watching your body. I'm not that focused on your feet. Yeah, exactly. There's no hint that you were starting to move before you did that, and I'm not necessarily impacted by, like, okay, here, we're out of range. Now you change your stance. Congratulations, we're still out of range. You have different shots that you're going to go for, but if we're out of range, I don't need to react to those immediately, right? So I can just, out of my mind, not a consideration. If somebody does that in the middle of a fight, they're probably going to get striped because that is like an egregious amount of movement without doing anything. And you, like, that's just, it's really dangerous.
The feint doesn't have a lot of hook or believability of the thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you were to ask them, why are you late to class? And I was like, the bus is late, man, and also Emma's got ice cream. There's no relation to it whatsoever. So if I'm like trying to throw some feint to say, oh, I'm gonna come in, but all of a sudden my shoulders dip this way, it's like, what in the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna keep space, I'm not gonna come in. There's no invitation. Whereas with what Mo was doing,
yes,
it's very, okay, just a little bit more, a little bit more, and we're in.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So again, like one of the key things, what did I say people are typically watching when they're not watching their feet, right? Yeah, center mass. Footwork will almost always necessitate a center of mass movement. That's what makes certain types of deception good, and that's what makes other types of deceptions bad. Like just stomping without any kind of body movement to it at all, right? So little body dip, little something like that, probably going to sell that a lot more than just the dirty stomp or something. And again, I probably wouldn't even really buy into that unless we were in a range where I felt like a lunge was going to murder me. So a lot of times people will open with that. I think that that's the key problem right there. But it's not necessarily for bad reason, because if you're stomping in the middle of a fight in an engagement, that's a half measure that you've now added to your timing that other people are going to have to just counter strike you if they don't pay attention and notice that you stomped and level dropped at, you know, range or something or close range.
The intention is to get a reaction if you're coin flipping on which way it'll go.
Yes.
You're not really dialing in them at all.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what we were talking about a little bit too, is you want to get them to initiate in some way, shape, or form, right? And you can use your movement to do that, but you're rolling the dice on what they're going to do. And maybe sometimes that's okay. Maybe that's what you're after. So you're going to come in and take a big step and see what happens, or you're going to try to cut them off at an angle and see if that changes, if they match you or something like that. But they're not necessarily, you don't know the plan, right? You're leaving yourself in the air, so you got to be very good with your defensive familiarity, or like you have a good repertoire with somebody and you're like, okay, I know for sure like that's what this person's going to do. I don't need to worry about getting money shotted because I've never been money shot by this person in my life or something. Like, you can get deeper with that kind of stuff. But yes,
maybe getting a little specific, but could we talk about the footwork for the money shot?
Yeah, absolutely. Heck yeah. Okay, so you want gear with it, because I can do it without gear.
Without gear.
Okay, so there are a couple of different ways of throwing.
It's like the leaf money.
Exactly.
The actual money.
Yeah.
There's what everyone else calls a money shot, but it's just in reverse round.
Exactly.
That's what I did.
Yeah. Okay. So first thing, board side or sword side hip is not inherently always a money, because it's usually done lazily and usually like some kind of weird chop like that. That's not really necessarily a money shot. What a money shot is doing, we can just go like this. So in order to make the money shot the most effective, you're going to have to go for it pretty hard, because what you're trying to do is you're level changing with your footwork, right? So anytime you want to go low while changing range, this is actually prime time for using a lunge, right? So boom, you're going to be lunging. You don't have to necessarily go that far, but if you're going for a really solid money shot, one that's just going to like eat people's lunch, it's difficult, it's going to be intensive, but getting low is the key.
I know, he came up and said hi, we talked.
So I'm here.
Right, so the level change is what's going to help hit that. that shot.
Yeah.
There's a second part to like the OG money, but we're talking about just a normal like money shot, right? There's the lunge, there's the fake.
Yeah.
So you're stepping off center line here.
Exactly. 45.
Yep.
That's an important concept that we're continuing to harp on.
Yeah.
I don't know, where's his midline?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're right here.
Yep.
Faking like we're going high.
Yeah.
And then you're coming low. You're kind of pulling through with that swords I hit. The second part goes into like a big shoulder wrap, but
that's follow up for the footwork that you already just used if you don't remember.
yeah. But that's essentially kind of like a very for a money shot. You're stepping off to the line with a fake high, and then you're coming low, going through them. The swords I hit.
That makes sense. So
why don't my money shots land?
Too obvious. Too obvious about it, or you're not stepping off center line, or people aren't threatened by it, or they are just committed to guarding and not dealing with bullshit until they're more comfortable with what they think you're going to do. So they're going to just sit here, and it's not terribly hard or uncommon to block a money shot anymore. It's not like the auto win button that it used to be. People have adapted, people have gotten more familiar with it, which means you're going to have to sell things a lot harder if you want it to work, which means you're going to need the footwork to be on point if you want that juicy money shot. So a lot of lateral movement. You got to make sure you're at the correct range with it, which is going to be even more difficult with the lateral movement unless you're already somehow in a good range. And you're going to have to use the level change in order to get up underneath people's guards effectively. That makes sense? Does that cover the question?
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay, what's up on that? Anybody else have any other examples of things or questions about like deception?
J-step? Is that still a thing?
What's a J-step? It could just be a completely terminology.
Okay.
J-step has 100 definitions.
Yeah. Suddenly curve to the side. It's
Something like
all
that?
in the one step though.
Do what now?
You thinking more like ghost steps? That's what Ginsu called them.
Okay, maybe.
I know. Like, if I can get a demonstration of something like this, of whatever it is, that would like
the closest thing that I can remember to the demonstration I got was that they were stepping and it wasn't.
Oh,
just,
okay, yeah.
They were.
That's just a good martial arts step. That's a good way of doing a step in general, right?
Yeah.
Also just crescent step.
Yeah. But he was apparently doing it to try and like hide where his feet were going to go.
Yeah. So
that
I think
was the point.
I think the stereotypical name for that is a crescent step. In Amped Guard, I just call that a step because, in my opinion, that's how you should be doing a step. If you're not doing that athletic step, then you're opening yourself up in some way. You're either being heavy on your feet by just peeking up and planting, and right there, right? Like, I leaned, I came down, I'm heavy, it's slow, I'm up on one foot, so I'm easy to bowl over or something like that. And it doesn't even have to be like, you know, it's Amped Guard, maybe you don't get checked immediately or something because people aren't good about, you know, equipment contact and they're uncomfortable with it or whatever.
So that said, it just does seem that I'm misremembering something about the demonstration because what was shown to me was somebody who's been around forever was telling me stories about when Peter got started fighting even, and he was trying to demonstrate a deceptive step.
Yeah.
Of course, it could have just been that it only was deceptive if you had Hakama on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, so, and let's talk about that too, just because it's really cool, right? And I'm a nerd about this stuff. That the whole point of the big baggy legs in general, and like before they started riding horses, they were even just dresses, right? They weren't even, they didn't have the legs sewn split in between. That came with horse riding. But the whole point of all of that stuff in general, any of the big baggy stuff, was to hide your leg movements so people couldn't see it. If you ever watch like rave dancers with the huge Jinko jeans and stuff like that, or rave pants or something, same thing. Like the reason they look like they can moonwalk like nobody's business, they're just hiding their legs. Anyways, I digress.
Yeah. Well, inversely, getting off your mighty calves makes it easier to feint. Seriously, if you wear super baggy stuff and you try to throw, people aren't reading half of what you're doing.
They can't see what's going on. So maybe that's another thing we could have had for considerations in footwork. What are you wearing? Yes.
So how would you adjust your footwork to account for fighting someone who's much taller? Because I know I'm only 5'6" and a lot of my fight to have my head height and their chest height.
Yeah. Okay, so how are we going to, are you thinking, how are we going to adjust the footwork plan, or how are we going to adjust our footwork in general?
Both.
Okay.
Fade to close. You're at this one.
No, go for it.
Okay. You can actually can I get
doesn't
a
matter which way.
Oh yeah. So there's somebody that was 5'9", is 5'9", started fighting at 5 foot. Yeah. If you're using, I grew a couple of inches in my 20s. It was weird. And then my hip wraps were landing right.
25.
Wow.
So if I'm here and my opponent is here, and I take this approximate step back, they're gonna go, okay, why are you leaving? Come back. And I go, okay, we're gonna go back one more time. And they're gonna go back one more time. And then I act to do a reverse lunge. They anticipate that, and then I rebound back into them, kind of thing. So, if I'm fighting Belthil and he's just tracing the piss out of my arm, right? Kind of, you know, my gut mark. This is fucking steak knife out.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I thought of this new shot. I got a knife in my fucking hand. Yeah. Fuck yeah. If he takes that step forward, I take that step back. Okay, I've established this range. We're moving right from the stump. I take that step back, and then I go. He's expecting.
Ah, yeah. All of a sudden.
So you act like you're gonna lunge back instead
Yeah.
of lunge forward.
Yeah.
Like,
So
stop going away. Stop going away.
Yeah. You're using deception, and what does a long person want to do, right?
They want to get right up on top of you so they can just hit you back.
No, I mean, yeah. So, no, normally they want to keep you at their ideal range while not having you be able to hit them.
They want to put their hand on your forehead so you can't sweep your fist through it.
Yeah. So,
Try to skip through that zone as much as you can.
yeah. How do you flip the script on something like that? You stay completely out of range, right? And you're like, no, I'm not gonna fight you. And they're like, what is this? I'm a long, lanky person. I'm the one that's supposed to backpedal. You can frustrate them a little bit, right? You show them no indication that you're going to engage them in the chase you down game, because that's what they want. You instead go like, no, I don't know what's going on. I'm scared. I don't want to do this. And then when they start biting on that because they get frustrated that you've been sitting here doing this sort of thing for like 10 minutes, finally, you can reverse that and use that psychology, right? So you're using your footwork to create this reverse psychology reaction instead.
And we can apply this to any of our other steps.
Yeah.
If I do a back 45, right, people tend to match the same thing.
Yeah.
And if I'm coming in, same thing. If I cut this way, again. So what it looks like, if I cut angle here, he counters typically like
the correct angle, the correct response would be that, rather than the typical response.
Yeah. So if I cut 45, he cuts that way. Okay, I cut to 45. I step back.
Yeah. Now I'm stumped and I'm stuck really hard, expecting to have the ability to go that way, and all of a sudden there's a threat.
The big thing is that it is not your job as the short person to close the distance. It is your job to not stay in their range.
Exactly. You need to find ways of getting into that. So, how we accomplish that with our footwork theory is exactly that. Like, you can either do something to make them be the ones who are trying to aggress, and then aggress as soon as they do that, because they fucked up, they overcommitted because they're desperate. Or you can use some of the other subtle tactics that we talked about, like circles, right? Circles in ant guard and in foam fighting, circles in general are fantastic fighting things, right? So if you think about like kung fu and stuff like that, whoa, it gets in your head. Circles, circle, 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 little short steps inwards that they're not paying attention to necessarily until you get close enough that you can commit to something you're like, I know you're not gonna be able to back up now. And the other benefit of that, right, is if you're constantly circling, you're constantly changing the trajectory of a press, they're going to have to be compensating as they're doing that too. And if they're just
the next thing eventually.
yeah. So if they're reacting to it, then they're not going to be able. They're going to be behind you when you finally do start to press. So I would say do that. As for the other, like, how are we going to alter the mechanics of the footwork? I would say don't. You should be keeping the same footwork mechanics the same, and you should be altering your plan for how you're going to close that distance, because the instant you start doing other things like weirdly with your footwork, it kind of gets desperate. And the reason we have our good footwork, right, is because we know the benefits of that. We know that it's balanced, agile, and strong. So as soon as you start to compromise that, you're getting desperate, and that leads to other bad developments, usually with you exposing yourself. So I would say footwork theory is how you're going to accomplish that. Not in deception a lot of times for getting them to bait into range. Make sense?
Like a small thing for momentum?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it comes to momentum, we're not just talking about forward-backward pressure. That is a big part of it. But it's going to be pressing is one of our options.
How do I get them?
We are eliciting responses. That is another part of momentum. Momentum spelling, it just feels nice, right? 5 or 2 L's. We can then pivot or change who is engaging or receiving. So it's a different kind of pivot. It's not forward pivoting, but it is momentum pivoting. I should probably write that way bigger, but here we are. And then the last two is going to be interrupt, and that can be either you or your opponent, and then yield.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that last one too. So we can touch on a lot of these, but especially on those last two, because what did he say with interrupting and yielding, right? It can come from either side. You can be trying to interrupt them, or you can interrupt your own flow. So if you're taking a step backwards or something, and you know they're pressing you, and you don't want to maintain that range, instead of having to do a deceptive plan where you're lunging back and then coming in and doing a lot of work, maybe instead you're interrupting your movement. You're like, okay, I'm going back, and then you stop short instead, and it's like, okay, it's not the full step, and now they close the range for you, right? So you're interrupting there. Yielding, same thing. Yielding is just a bait, baiting them into doing something. So say with footwork, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna either pretend that I'm bad, or I'm pretending like I'm lazy and I don't want to do anything. They start circling. The stereotypical reaction is going to be to keep your orientation and try to match their movements, right? So you stay strong. Yeah. Exactly. Now I can just be lazy, right? I can appear bad or nonchalant about it. So he goes for movement, and then when he feels comfortable and safe, now I can. Yeah. Now you can go into something else hilarious. Exactly. So he has adjusted the angle and come right into a preloaded backspin or something like that. So you can use footwork to accomplish these kind of goals by even yielding it, like doing something that you know is bad or risky, because it's going to make them want to do something.
Or if you feel that money shot thing and you're in here, you know it's not going to land, just giving them a half second to be like, no, you can be the aggressor, never mind.
Yeah. Yes.
Yielding, I get a lot of mileage with I'll start, and I'll do step in like this.
Yeah.
Bang in the shoulder really hard.
Yeah.
And it's easy, as soon as they step in, it's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. I do that a lot. Like I will line up against people in single sword when I was having some good fights earlier. So there are two modes of single sword. It's like one, the person is extremely good at their footwork, and I'm tired of just trying to play range game with them because it's really popular in single sword, right? And I also just like being a range person. So I'm gonna adjust my stance, and now I'm just this is bad in single sword historically, right? Having a stance where this arm is out and doing this, and you're taking away range, that seems bad. And it's forcing a particular type of engagement on my end, but I know that they're going to want to see that, they're going to want to do something because it is definitely a weaker position. You can do exactly that, right? It's really easy to just use your footwork, step out here with a different stance, change, pop, counter, or if you need to, you can come through with a step instead, and now you're extended out as you're trying to trade the arm and not a back shot for their body, ideally, or their sword arm, and then you have a sword arm versus their offhand, and that could be really good for most people, unless it's these people, the Amir, who like to train everything and have good strong offhands too, and hand match just out of
eliciting responses now, right?
Yeah.
So some people are very committed to their swings, and they are, every time they're going to swing. That's great. That's very good for control. Unfortunately, you're giving me the timing 1,000%. You are hitting on that 1, 2, 3, 4. I know when you're going to step, I don't have to look at your feet. You don't have to look at your shots.
Yep.
So in terms of looking at feet, it is good to get a good scan on that, but your hand, the hand bone's connected to the arm bone connected to the legs. So if you see this come out wide, yes, they can look, you should be paying attention to the center of mass, but this educates where the feet are. He doesn't have to look down. He already knows I'm leaning. He's already got a grin on his fucking face for this. He's like, okay, cool. I got a double step here and we're going to bang.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, so.
Sorry if I interrupted.
No, dude, no, that's awesome. That is amazing. Okay.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, can you use your footwork to kind of adjust your tempo then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you can throw the off-tempo shot by like...
Well, you can throw a horizontal and like 80% of the way there, then start stepping to change the angle.
Exactly. Yeah. So especially with like certain, so again, footwork is not literally just the movement of your feet, right? Or rather, yeah. Footwork is how you're moving your body to accomplish a goal. So we can go down and change level, and that can be a tempo adjustment in and of itself, right? So you come here, you pause for a second, you crouch just a little bit, and then that time that it's taking is probably going to be enough to off-time them in a lot of instances, right? Or same thing, like tempo, little half step, not going anywhere, tempo change, right? Yeah. So you can use a lot of different things for accomplishing tempo changes, strictly just based on your footwork. And it's about range control more than anything when you're talking about tempo. Range control is going to be the key there, because you need to know what you're trying to accomplish in your tempo change. Like, am I trying to up the pace, or am I trying to retard the pace, right? Do I want to be faster? Do I want them to get nervous and like, oh, twitchy? Or do I just want to not deal with whatever it is that they're doing?
Space sets the pace, pace controls space.
Oh my gosh. Okay, what was the next topic on that list?
That was, I think, the full on there, and then you had the goals there.
Yeah, okay. Anybody have any other specific examples that they want to talk about? Like, what are some problems that you have when it comes to getting to a range with people or something like that? Or what is something that you feel like you fail at, right? Like you throw a money shot and it's just not landing or something. Whatever it is, we can step up and we can workshop right now.
Lefty hip scoop.
Do what now?
Just a lefty hip wrap.
Lefty hip wrap. You have difficulty landing a lefty hip wrap?
Sometimes.
Okay, yeah. So come up here and let's. Anybody else have anything that I can borrow? It doesn't matter. Cool. And this is perfect. The lefty, it's an offhand match. I don't even need a shield for this, right?
Yep.
So the lefty hip wrap is going to run into a lot of the same shortcomings as a money shot, right? So typically, however the lefty is going to throw a lefty hip wrap, just go for it. Yeah, exactly. Stepping that way in order to try and increase the angle of attack. What is that not doing for your game?
Let's come further back to do a wide angle kind of thing.
Yeah.
You guys are in front.
Yeah. Yeah, so exactly. He stepped off that way, and I didn't even bother adjusting my stance, which is bad. Do as I say, not as I do. But this would be the good guard, and it didn't get him anything. Like he's not going to be able to get there. So what footwork-wise did we talk about with the money shot, right?
Throw something else first, or fake something else first to get back to the wall.
Yeah, exactly. So, and what came with that, right? So there's a fake involved.
And a step.
The other direction.
And a step, exactly. So, what direction, if he is trying to make me think something else is going to be the target, is he going to go in order to sell me on something to make me not be as cognizant of this shot coming in? Circle would be fantastic. A circle will like make me wig out, but it might make me
class though. Where's your piece?
Yeah. What kind of stance is this? Get out of here! Yeah, little more athletic, a little farther apart. Yeah. There we go. That's good. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so the direction that Morpheus went, that way, 45. The direction you're gonna go, because you're essentially throwing a money shot, except you're just a left-handed person, so it's just a lefty hip wrap. Just quote unquote, like the most deadly shot a lefty has, which is why everybody leans on it. But, so in order to get success, you want to shoot the same way. Like every lefty and their brother goes this way, and it gets deeper, but everybody is so trained to it, right, that it becomes difficult. So doing a step off this way and go with a fake at the same time, right? So you're selling the fact that you're coming up here, maybe the opposite side, right? Yeah. So you're coming across like, I'm going to attack that. And this is good. Lefties don't typically go for that. They probably get punished a whole hell of a lot for it, but that's fine. You're leaning into that because you're faking. You're not actually throwing the shot. So just a little pump up, and now, yeah, so go for it. Whoop. Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's take a few parts out. So real quick. Yeah. That whole fade to close thing. If I'm throwing and I keep stepping in and we keep not ever reaching there. But punish. Can I come just a little bit? Yeah. So a lot of lefties, they'll abuse the piss out of your hand. So they'll come in like this. This is a footwork fade. This is not throwing. There's nothing happening. Yeah, exactly. This is selling level changing and just leaning with your body. So you get that first piece of the tempo there. My footwork is fainted. Now that whole side is open, and that's all the spirit block to try and go from here to ugh. So from there, I've got a little bit of the footwork. Now I can cross step real hard, but at this point I'm inviting a really nice meaty stab, and the feet are going to educate that as well. But what I can do instead, I've done that little feint there. My back foot, because he's flat-footed in this specific moment, because he decided to crap. Exactly. Yep. Flat-footed, I can make a bad choice, which normally, yes, you should not be pressing off with your foot sideways and crooked like that, but it doesn't matter. He's flat-footed. So once I come here, I'm now offside. His stuff might, then that's the wrap there.
Yeah, exactly. So this is an example that we just talked about at the very start of the class, right? There are applications for badness in a lot of instances that still might end up with the result that you want, and in fact they still might be the actual best thing. So if that step works, you're not injuring anything necessarily. You might be giving up something, but it doesn't necessarily matter in that case because I'm not more stable either, so I can't really do anything as a consequence of you making a bad movement. I'm still stuck, and I'm still going to have to do something or try to reach and do something ridiculous, and you're more stable than I am, even if it's not the best step that you've ever made. So, makes sense? Lefty hip wrap success. Try doing something to fake to the other side and then go for the money, or lefty wrap. Yep. Other examples of problems people have that they want to conquer with footwork.
We have 5 minutes, so let's grab.
We'll go over here first and then come back.
What was the second thing on the board first? But then I do have one.
Second thing?
Yeah.
Interrupt.
Thank you.
Press, elicit, pivot, interrupt, yield. Goes from the
elicit. Okay.
Elicit.
Shield side hip.
Shield side hip, as in how to throw the
how to get close enough, I guess, to throw the shot.
Yeah. Okay.
Which hip are you talking?
Right shoulder board, sword side hip.
Are you asking for the big meaty speed ball, or are you asking for the wrap that goes around the whirl?
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Both is nice.
Can I borrow that? Yeah. Can I borrow that sword again? Sorry. I should just go grab my stuff. I don't even know where it is.
We got 5.
Have a
we got 5.
Cool. Okay. So, one of the things that you can do at first, come out here, and try to imagine the board, right? So, a quick little hip wrap is going to necessitate me just kind of being like a little closer than normal, right? But you can get there by using your footwork, and again, what are we targeting, right? We're targeting this opposite side. So where's a good way to sell a fake?
Sword side here.
Going that side, yeah, exactly. So a quick little two-step, right? Little two-step, right? So just boom, boom, just up. I didn't move my arm that much, like I just leaned into it. I didn't necessarily go for a wrap or anything like that, just up, boom, straight down, whack. That is incredibly fast, and if you're going that direction well, even if they're competent with their block, they're probably gonna cheat their shield. People cheat shields like nobody's business in this. Even the best fighters do it because they know that, hey, if I'm far enough over, it doesn't matter how good that block is. I can still probably reach something, and it's still really threatening, right? So that's where the top end game comes, is just playing with people's natural human reactions to try and fuck with them.
A little sociopath.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say that's a good example for just the quick snappy hip wrap, right? Just boom, and then pop, just drop down, boom, and then the around the world one, yeah.
So a lot of people think of it as you feint here. This just stays locked.
Yeah.
This is all footwork. Like for me personally, I'm dribbling a ball. I dribble the ball here. I get to here. My arm's just locked. And if he reacts to anything, and then he tries to guess down, out, or up, whichever one's the one, wrong answer. Because he should have stepped out of the way.
Yeah. My footwork is already terrible. I'm in a bad position. He went off at a little angle. Yeah, exactly.
Feint. I'm not throwing anything. My arm is stiff like a rock. Yep. If he drops the board down, I'm going over into the butt. If he goes across, I'm coming up. If he goes, what is it? Up? Out and around, right? And
But either one is the wrong choice because you didn't step.
Yeah, so tying up my feet, right? So you're trying to take advantage of something by making sure the opponent can't utilize their footwork.
You're thinking, I have to block right here. It's like, no, get out.
Yeah.
Leave.
All right, and then we'll talk about the big hip sweep, right? So what is the money good at doing?
Getting under a shield.
Hitting that sword side hip no matter what they have going on, right? They have to be super aware of it. They're going to have to drop really low and try to match your angle if you're throwing a very appropriate money. That is the same solution that you're going to use for hitting that other hip, right? So you don't necessarily need the fake, but what you need is a level change in order to get that big juicy rep, right? So in some way, shape, or form, your hand is going to be coming down and you're going to be ideally dropping. So you can step into that and then come up and just like for the world, or you can go tall with it and then really extend your arm. You're gonna have to be very close if you want to do that. The better, like the way that I prefer to throw it anyways, is going to be if I'm like sword leg forward. Same thing as like if I was going for a money shot, right? I'm going to be like, and then butt wrap instead. So I'm still going the same direction. That's only because getting that lunge and the range out there to where I can get my sword to be effective with that kind of wrap necessitates that that's more comfortable. If I wanted to go the opposite direction, I'm going to cut out the range, which means I'm going to have to be very close, and I personally don't like to be, grinding shields. So that's not as comfortable for me, but you can do it. You just have to remember the level change there. And the thing with level changes in your footwork is you want to do that in split second, like just very quick, and you have to rely on the fact that you have to have confidence it's going to do what you want. The good thing about that is it's not necessarily the most unsafe shot in the world to throw, right? Like your shield can stay up here, can stay nice and like defensive and stuff like that. You just like whack, and then it's not that bad. You still have a lot of shield here, so it can be safer than you might give it credit for, unless they're stepping and like trying to gut your arm.
Well, one thing when you did that lunge with the wrap kind of thing,
yeah.
If you come in low on that level change, right? For a split second, my brain's going, oh, he's flat-footed. I have pressure. And it's like, wait a minute, it's not my turn.
Yep. So, other specific examples people are interested in. We have one over here.
This actually springboards right off of what he's doing.
Sick.
I routinely get out footwork.
Okay.
As in, I'm going around.
Yeah.
They're ahead of me.
Yeah, okay. So, how to deal with somebody when you are trying to do something and they can do it faster, or they're more effective, or they have taller reach or something like that.
Or their loop is shorter.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to be aware of that, right? So first off, let's analyze. If we're talking shorter loop, and we're talking the spiral example now, right? Like you're trying to go around them and they're just, or are you talking their
the cognitive loop.
Cognitively.
Shorter OODA
Oh,
loop.
yeah, okay. So in that case, what you want, if it's like a mental block kind of thing, and you think that they are faster with how they can process information, what you're going to want to do is develop a plan and develop a way of sticking to that plan or trying to force that. And anytime something doesn't go to the plan, you are committed to resetting. So, because if you have a plan and you stick to it and you force the situation, you've removed the reactionary aspect out of it other than what you've already planned for, and hopefully the speed doesn't necessarily matter because hopefully it's a good plan, right? So as soon as you see footwork indicating something going sideways, your first goal is going to be to clear and get out in some way, shape, or form. Make sense?
Okay.
That's going to be like the most effective way I can think of for dealing with something.
So use footwork to detach from the situation where you can see that they're already ahead of you. So,
Exactly.
Nope, okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah, as soon as you feel not comfortable, you can always just peace out. That's it.
You're not required to stay there.
Yeah. If your goal relies on you getting close, then you can workshop ways of getting close without feeling uncomfortable, right? If you're uncomfortable, there's no obligation for a fight to be over in 10 seconds or something like that. If you're in a tournament where it's like that, Hopefully it's not one where they're like, okay, well, you're both dead and get out of my ring or something. It could be, but that would be weird, and I'd also be like, that's a shitty fighter because you're necessitating a specific, or a shitty reeve because you're necessitating a specific kind of fighting style, and I dislike that. But that's the world we live into. That's tournaments. Other examples, other questions? Yes?
Pocket stab.
Pocket stab.
Pocket stab.
Hell yeah. Okay, so with a pocket stab, specifically talking sword and board?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what are you trying to do with a pocket stab, right? You're trying to come up over top of their shield somehow and get it. A lot of people will have success with that by choking up on their sword and cutting in really close. So this is going to fall into getting close again. The difficulty with a pocket stab is it's hard to sell a fake before going into it, I find, because usually a good fake is going to make transitioning to the way that you throw the pocket stab right. Yeah, you're like, I'm gonna shoulder wrap. How do you pocket stab from here? Yeah, exactly. It's like, I can do this and come down and hope that they're moving this way and I stab them as we're crossing. Or I can like take all of this time to get it angled correctly and then try to stab over the top. It's gonna be weird. So you're gonna be using your footwork and body dips and movements in order to sell certain kinds of fakes if you want to get that opened up. Pocket stabs are also just really effective openers. They feel unsafe, but in my experience, especially with some fights earlier, he got me with a pocket stab just straight up, no problem, right? My shield work is lazy and people don't expect something to come back that far to their chest, so if you're like really committed to it, you just boom and go for it, no problem. Now you can do what I just did right there, right? So I slid in, I came up in order to get a little bit of height, in order to get over top of something a little bit better, and my guard was like a typical guard going into it. So like maybe a little lowering, maybe not, but you're taking that step, you're getting a little momentary boost of height in order to do that before coming down. So it's effectively a step, but you're using bad footwork, admittedly, to get a little height advantage and change that equation for that split second that you're doing the stab. Stabs are fast, split second is all you're gonna need.
We're trading out efficiency.
Exactly. Yeah.
You should step away from them too, because they have to turn. So
Yeah.
when they're turning to face you.
Sick.
That's when you get them, because when they have to turn, they're moving their body, and you can already be moving into it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, so you're actually like cutting their circle faster.
Sick.
And that's how you get them with the pocket
Yeah,
stab.
awesome. So, yeah, you're deceiving them, and again, you're playing the spiral game. Spiral game, amazing top tier way of controlling spacing and getting certain things if you need to like be able to close on somebody. Just slow pace it, or just keep trying to spin around in circles because it's going to cut off their retreats a lot more than just any kind of standing there. Go for it.
Yeah, I need, so your point, I need the visual. So you're saying circling here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I'm planted.
You can throw a fake too. The only good fake for pocket stab is leg.
Yep.
So I throw leg, and I can even like throw.
Yeah, dude.
Right? So I can throw leg, because your shield might cheat a little bit.
Yep.
And then you might turn a little bit, because I'm doing this.
Yep.
So if I step this way, and you turn, and I step, and I fake, boom, and then I can just stab.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
fantastic fake.
Okay, because I just walked by here, Warm, if you ever get your fight this dude, crazy, like, he has this, like, pocket stab, like, down pat, he does the same move, and he's able to press.
Yeah.
And typically what kills me with him is almost 100% of how the way he throws it, because he's that he'll press in, so applying pressure, closing distance, he's in my bubble, I don't want to be there, I'm going mid to far, I want to and then he's doing this here.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh god. Every single goddamn
It is so good because if you get killed with something, it becomes, this is a completely different class now. Congratulations,
Yeah,
you've
no,
now
thank
evolved to, yeah.
Get him with a
But
pocket stab.
get him with a pocket stab a couple of times, and now you have free access to their back because you're in their head.
Well, it's just like you can utilize footwork to add on to make your opponent kind of buffer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
You have them questioning what's going on and they have to process.
yeah, like you're using that example, you're aggressing into someone who doesn't want to be aggressive. now you're leaning here to stop. Now it's getting to fake, like fake to this like, oh, I'm about to stab you. But then also,
my footwork is lazy, right? Like he did something. I'm like, I'm worried about this, so I'm trying to defend.
Yeah.
My footwork is gone because I'm more focused on that.
It's an aggressive elicitation.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very aggressive elicitation.
And one thing I'll say about like, let's say defensively with footwork and stuff is, let's just say defense in general. I'd say that your footwork should be your first line of defense.
Yeah.
Like, just don't be there. You don't need to sit there and try to fight the fight unless you feel like you can get an advantage out of that situation.
Exactly.
But yeah, you don't have to be there. So your footwork should be your first line of defense. But in case something like that happens, if someone jumps on you, sometimes some people's reaction is like, well, what's my second thing? It's the sword, it's throwing your shield over, so like, they can use that
What's
example.
the freak out?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, class is officially over, by the way. Nobody is required to stay here. You're not required to stay here anyways during class. Like, you can rudely just, no problem.
Yeah, rudely.
It's y'all's event. But, yeah, I'm happy to sit here and talk about more examples if people want. Otherwise, did people get some actionable items for how they can use footwork theory to accomplish some goals? Did it make sense to you? Did you like it? Do you have any issues with any of the stuff taught? You're like, oh, that definitely is something different that I've never thought of, and I think it's trash, whatever. Like, I open to feedback, otherwise.
Thanks for all the stuff. Thank you.
Sick, yeah. The lecture classes are a lot of talking, I know, but it's also like end of the night, and now you can be fresh for all the nighttime bitching that everybody else is gonna do while I go home and fuck this.